Thank you very much. I'm more fortunate than most people. I have already lived, and I'm old enough and secure enough not to get angry because people don't like what I'm going to say.
Right on.
At least a month before the march, I was one of the first people to say that the march was a ceremonial waste of time and a Farrakhan con game. I said it because I know Farrakhan and I know other con games that he's played. My remarks will be centered around Farrakhan, a faker, Malana Karenga, another faker, and the word atonement. I don't have to defend my political relationships because I have been a political left radical for most of my life, and I have been a severe critic of the left for most of my life, and for which I have no apologies. Now, the Million Man March was an achievement. An achievement for who and for what? Anytime you gather that many people together and the speeches last 4 and 5 hours, and you do not bring Africa in focus, in relationship to the African people of the world, you are out of order. You might as well talk about a child without talking about its mother and its father. Now, let's look at the intent of Farrakhan, and let's look at a serious disease in our community that plagues Farrakhan as well as others, and that is ego starvation. We are lacking in a special kind of stoking that makes us secure. Let's look at the fact that Malcolm X was the tutor of Farrakhan, and he turned on Malcolm X and said that Malcolm X was a traitor to the nation, and the nation had a right to punish him. Now, can you trust in leadership people who would turn on a friend? I have said many times, if Farrakhan would sell one of his stretch limousines, he could send a black student through medical school. You have gathered to aggrandize a faker who is not accountable to you for anything. He has not accounted to you for the $5 million he got from Libya. Libya is part of the fundamentalist Arab clique who wants to Islamize Africa or destroy it. Who congratulated him after the march? Libya and a high politician from Iran. Libya has been instigating to move to the south into the great corridor that is Sudan. If you take the Sudan, that corridor gives you a straight shot into South Africa, and Libya will join the whites to reconquer Africa. They have no compunction about it because they do not think of themselves as an African people, and like all conquerors, conquerors, they declared war on all forms of African culture. Because Farrakhan belongs to fundamentalist and reactionary Islam, he knows nothing about revolutionary Islam, that is African Islam. In Arab Islam, no woman ever held state power. In African Islam, women not only held state power, but in African Islam, women are the masters of the marketplace. Go to West Africa right now. Most of the concessions are controlled by women. Go to East Africa where you find African Islam. It's man controlled. Because the Arabs destroyed the matrilineal and installed the patrilineal. Farrakhan has not answered to us. For some things we should have obviously asked some questions about. After the Million Man March, the Caribbean News had a headline hailing the march in the triumph of the West Indian Farrakhan. How did Farrakhan suddenly become a West Indian? He wasn't born there. Why are you emphasizing his West Indianness now? He ain't got no West Indian support. Why did you let Farrakhan get away with saying repeatedly the slave ships stopped in the West Indies and left the strong ones and brought the weaker ones over here, which is a lie, which proves he have no knowledge of how the slave ships, the slave trade operates. Why don't you know enough about your history to know how this trade operated? After the American Yankee Clipper outran the British man of war, and slavery was a New England business, not a Southern business. The Southerners bought their slaves from the New Englander. After that, American ships went straight to Africa, picked up the slaves, and came straight back to the United States. You cannot separate slaves based on who was brave and who was not brave. The slave revolts in the Caribbean islands were more successful, had nothing to do with bravery. It had to do with an incident in history which neither one of us had anything to do with. The maintenance of culture continuity. Slaves, buyers in the Caribbean bought in large lots and kept the lots together. They thought they could work them better that way, but they forgot they could revolt better that way. In the Caribbean islands, the slave in the house related to the slaves in the field. In the United States, because they bought in small lots and broke them up, the slave in the house had no relationship to the slave in the field, and the slave in the house would betray the slave in the field. This had nothing to do with bravery. It has to do with culture continuity. There are good books on the subject by fine Caribbean writers, especially Eric Williams and C.L.R. James. So what is he talking? Distorting history, and he get away with it because you don't know history. In a speech made right here in New York, Farrakhan bought the story of the curse and said, and I've got it on tape, I got it in video, and I got it on audio, that people with dark skin and woolly hair, a certain kind of nose, was cursed. And that the texture of your hair and the texture of your eyebrows are supposed to be the same. He's saying with his high yellow self that he is pretty and blessed by God.